I have a couple things on teaching. Uh, when we first started, we taught some of the kids, and later on, we taught their kids. And towards the end of our career, we actually taught some of
the
their kids or grandkids. That was really unique. And they can say all they want about Entiat, but we have a lot of doctors and lawyers. We've had people get national recognition. We've had our neighbor down the street, Paula Brock's son, Ted, everybody calls him Butch when he grew up, has worldwide recognition in fish, and he's the one that set up the triploids. He's actually the one who developed those. And now he's the head of the Pacific Salmon Recovery effort. So we've had people that have been fantastic students, and we've had people that were not students but ended up doing fantastic things. And when I say not students, they came to school to socialize, to talk to people, and you know those, to be in the halls, to be at lunch, and to be in sports, but not necessarily to work in classes. But anyway, and I can remember all the fires, the 58 fire, the 48 flood, the 58 fire, the 70 fire, the 88 Nickelman fire, the 94 Tyee, and then the ones this year. So we were all involved, worked on those.
I remember when he speaks fire, in 1958 or 9, I was away at a leadership camp. There were a couple of us, Bob Jacobson and I. And while we were at this camp over in Seattle somewhere, Seebeck, one of the counselors said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear, about your town." And I said, "What?" Because we hadn't got any papers. They said it burned up. I had gotten, we didn't have cell phones in those days. We didn't have phone service there at the camp or newspapers. So I wasn't sure by the time that our camp was done if I was going to have a home to return to it, and still hadn't heard any news till we got home. And I guess the fire came down very, very near to the city proper, so it was exciting.
It started in Tina's George, which is a big canyon down. Came across, they had all the high school kids lined with sprayers along the Entiat. Our job was when the fire came, turn on the sprayers and the fire wouldn't jump. Well, that lasted all of 10 seconds. The fire landed on the hill, burnt clear up into Navarre Coulee, and burnt all the way around the towns, but the townspeople saved it with the turning on the orchard sprinklers and using the sprayers, and us kids to spray and man the hoses. You want to know about our relationship? We started going together towards the end of high school. She went to Seattle Pacific. I went there one quarter. I went to Eastern, which is on the other side of the state. So we corresponded, made my mail. We didn't have a lot of phones. We didn't have cell phones. Neither one of us had over abundance of money. But we came together and we decided in my senior years, I married her because she had taught for years, so she was a rich woman. And I was screaming.
Paid off my student loan.
I almost went into service in 1963 when she was talking about the Kennedy deal, that they put everybody on alert and said, give us 24-hour notice that you're going to go active military. And the Bay of Pigs was another one. So those two almost put me into service early. But when we graduated, we got married on June 20th of 1964. And then went directly to the military, so she became a military wife. She has schools about teaching in Oklahoma because they didn't have textbooks, and the
teacher pay was atrocious.
Yeah, it was like $4,000 a year. That was the teacher's pay then. Of course, you remember.
No, it was $1,200.
Or $1,200. Something ridiculous.
A year.
I was
and
most say 4,000 would have been good.
That was great. It was $1,200. And most of the really good teachers taught out of state went somewhere else because you can't afford to live on that. But it was interesting. I do remember I went to first grade up at the Vradenburg school, and we lived further up than that. They bussed us down, and we had 2 classrooms in the school. One was first through 3rd or 4th grade, and then the other half was the 4th through the 7th, I think, or 8th, because when you were in the
Well, they,
Junior high, okay, 4 through 6.
Yeah.
1st through 3, 4 through 6, because when you got to junior high, then you were
7th grade.
bused down to the big city of Entiat.
The city kids got to meet the upper kids.
So we never mingled really with the downtown kids. We were the valley kids and the city kids. But the first 3 grades were taught when I went to that school by Florence Long, was my teacher. And her husband, Kenneth Long, taught the other classroom, the 4th through the 6th. So I can remember it was several stories high, and there was an outside big tube
You
thing
can still see it.
that was the fire escape. And
Big
we
tube.
were forbidden to, well, you never forbid students to do anything. So we were forbidden to play in that because it was for serious fire escapes. So every recess or break we had, you'd always find kids sneaking into that tunnel. And it was my goal in life to be able to climb all the way up to that tunnel, because it wasn't quite big enough for you to get your feet wide enough to get up there. And the big kids could get up there, but we little kids could only get part way. And then we'd slide down like a big slide. It was a really great deal. But that's that old, I don't know which school it is.
Yeah.
Ardmore School, it's the
Ardmore
white building
School.
right by the Forest Service, by the county shop.
And then later on, it was, when I was down here, they turned it into a library.
Yeah, it used to
It
be
was-
the Ardmore
it was our-
Library for years.
It was our library. So that's where we did our library collections. Mrs., I can't remember who the librarian was.
Yeah. You drive up, you start out down here and you drive up and you just, every mile you go, you see history. It just, you see the
I had
packing sheds,
forgotten
the
that,
old
yeah.
schools.
I'll show you some books before you leave. Hal Borman was teaching here. His students did a deal on each school in the district.
Mhm.
There was a school on top of Crum Canyon, and then there was one at the 4-mile mark, where there's a camp there now. It's called a church camp, some people call it. And of course, there's the Ardmore School, the Potato Creek School, the Brief School, and there's a couple more in there.
I actually lived in the Potato Creek School building. That's where
Now,
our home was.
During this time when they had all the schools, did the teachers have to have degrees?
My dad graduated with I can't remember what they called, normal school.
Yeah,
It's
that was
called
2
normal.
years.
Normal school, which is high school plus 2 years of college. But then he went on and got his degree in North Dakota. But I think that a lot of the teachers were high school plus the 2 years, the normal school degree.
Speaking of education in Oklahoma, my dad was offered a teaching certificate after the 8th grade.
Well, I've seen some of their exams to pass. It used to be that you had to pass an 8th grade exam at the end of your 8th grade year in order
go on to high
to
school.
graduate or to continue. And those exams, I'm a relatively intelligent person. I don't know if I could have managed to pass those. They were,
Pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cheney Normal. That Eastern used to be called Cheney Normal. So it was a 2-year school. Myra Russell, Kenneth Long, Mrs. Carmen, these are all teachers back when I was in grade school, went through normal schools, so they had a 2-year teaching degree.
Yeah, we had Central, Eastern, and
Yeah.
Western normal schools.
Right, they were all normal schools. And then they became colleges when they went to 4 years. And now each of them's called a university.
Because they
because
teach
of the,
more than one.
Yeah.
They have more than one master program.
right, yeah. Before that, as a college, they didn't even have master's programs, some of them. Then as they got multiple master's programs, it became a university.
Sure. Okay,
So,
are we good?
that's good.
Yeah, you guys got anything else to say or anything? No?
Do you have any questions you want to ask?
yeah, do you have any questions? You must have questions.
Yes, I had your mom and dad at school.
I know.
They were great students. They were.
Yeah, we'll tell you that.
No, I don't have to even cross my
So we
fingers
always,
on that.
they pay us later. No. They were good students.
We didn't really talk about family much. Brothers and sisters. Where do you fit in the scheme of the family?
Okay. I am the oldest of 6 children, and my oldest brother is deceased. He died in Alaska. But we all attended the Entiat schools. And one of my brothers is a retired educator. He lives in Quincy. And my sister got a teaching degree, never taught. She worked for the Fort Lewis there. And
She was in the civilian authority. She had the rank
GS.
as a colonel if she'd been Army.
she's like a GS 30. She was at very high when she retired. My brother Steve, my brother Steve is currently he worked in the mill systems he was a mill superintendent.
In charge of mills.
He did, actually was he in Ardmore?
He worked at Ardmore, but
worked at Ardmore.
he was a head of the cashmere mill.
And then
Thompson
he was
Falls,
yeah,
Vernal, Utah, and Mount Vernon.
and now he's retired.
And he owns a store in Acme. He grew up in Ardmore, and the big deal was he has a store that's just like Ardmore, a little bit bigger. It's a place called Acme, Washington, which is like Ardmore. It's out of Bellingham and out of Mount Vernon, up in the hills, kind of, and it's out of the way, but they're
It's
having
a
a great
Cooper
time.
store over in Acme.
And Robin, your other sister,
And
is
my youngest sister, Robin, also took a teaching degree. She lives in Staten Island, New York. She doesn't teach in the public school system there because it's not a safe profession to do, actually. She
women.
teaches for the New York Museum adjunct there in Staten Island. She teaches student classes when they come there.
It was really interesting. I graduated in a class of 25, and at least half of that class ended up as teachers. Went on to become teachers, and it sounds to me like in your
Our family.
in your family, or maybe even an Entiat. I know last night I heard at city council meeting. You had a what do you call it? They got a big award.
Nobel Prize.
Nobel Prize award winner.
yes,
from Entiat.
1935 came out of the Entiat school system.
Mhm.
Mr. King, I can't remember his first name.
Mr. King.
Yeah.
And another thing I've noticed about Entiat since I've been here, that's the number of people that have written books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's really fascinating. It's
There are a
interesting.
lot of people that have written books.
Yep.
Except we all read them.
Several of our students are now professors at university. The Peters,
Yeah.
Ellie Peters.
Ellie Peters'
And then
son.
I had a Bob Andrews. He's a funny story. Bob was in my geometry class or a math class, and he was very bright, but he was one of these ones who hurried and didn't pay a lot of attention to details. I'm a very detailed, precise person. He would get the right numbered answers, but he'd have like 3 extra zeros or a comma and a decimal in the wrong place. I mean, he just was haphazard. And I said, you need to be careful about where that decimal goes, because if you end up being a scientist and make some experiment and make a big mistake like that and blow up, the nation. He ended up being a professor of math.
I have a story about one of our students, Craig Reese. Craig socially was not very good, but he scored when he graduated in the 98.6 percentile in the nation. Meant there's only 1.4% of the nation scored higher in any exam he ever did. The government gave him his choice of any college in the nation, including MIT. He chose WSU because of chemistry. He was a chemistry student. And now he's head of the largest think tank in Silicon Valley. There's over 250 scientists that work on projects out of the box to find deals, and he's found his niche. He's in charge of all that. He doesn't have to speak a lot, but I have never seen a kid that was a freshman in high school that I had 2 years of college chemistry that was taking the 5th or 6th course. He was taking chemistry I never had, and he is a freshman. He actually graduated from Entiat, but he also, if Running Start would have been great, he had 2 years of college when he graduated from Entiat.
From doing,
from doing
not online, but, because we didn't have online
correspondence
then,
and actually going.
correspondence,
He
yeah.
had to go to WSU or wherever school we had the classes from. He had to go there to take finals with the regular class, because in those days they didn't allow you to do online, and they didn't have monitors in the school. So he went to WSU, and Dr. Crosley was an eminent chemist in the world. Did the color stuff. You may know him.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went and became a graduate assistant and a graduate student, got his doctorate degree because of this one particular person.
But he wasn't just a mathematician. His vocabulary and
Oh, he just overall.
reading ability
History.
were just, he was a dream in my class. In fact, he'd ask me if he could do my extra credit tests, if he could just make them up for me. So if I was busy,
Yeah.
he'd make them up for me for the students.
And in science, he always wanted to make the science tests, and the students never wanted him to do that because what he thought was very easy, they couldn't pass.
I can remember they put me to do, I had to do a business math class. I had no background in this whatsoever, in any way, shape, or form. So I went into the class, I had 25 kids in the class, and the first day I said, look, here's a course outline. I have no background in this class. I had 4 hands pop up. And so we had a chat. They wanted to teach the class.
And probably
they did,
could
and I
do it,
loved
yeah.
it. You betcha. You bet. I learned a lot that year. That was a fun class. They had a good time, a good experience with them. It was great for me. Do
We
you
came-
ever have a teacher do you that way? No?
Now, I taught French
Mhm.
in addition to the English and Spanish, and we always had, once a year at least, a French dinner at my house. So my students probably don't remember anything except their attempt to eat escargot. So
Uh-huh.
And most of them loved it after they finally
we did.
it. You know, when I taught, science was really super hands-on. We dissected 6 different things and worked with the fish hatchery and the Forest Service. A lot of our kids went on to the Forest Service, and some went to fish hatchery. But we were always testing the river water for after fires for silt, and we did quality, and we did radon testing in basements around town, and we got into some awful basements and houses that now I don't think they'd let us go in and take tests on the air and stuff, but we scraped mold off the walls and we'd grow it in petri dishes and see what it was.
And his chemistry students would get back in the lab and make stink bombs and stink
Yeah,
up
we
the
let
school
them
sometimes.
do things to show them what real life was when you got out of school. Here's some things you could do. Extra credit projects were a big thing. They loved to mess with stuff. But it was all supervised, but they were really good. A big story about school, they had a fire drill in elementary school, and the building we have now, it was the stairs on both ends. I don't know, yeah. So they said, we need to pep up the fire drills, so we made smoke. I told them how to make smoke out of 3 normal household ingredients, including sugar, battery acid, and another one I won't say because it's pretty easy to get. We filled the halls with smoke, the fire alarm went off, and we had such a mess. It's a wonder we didn't kill half the people because they were trying to run downstairs, they couldn't see.
It was a serious fire alarm.
Yeah. And it smells kind of like cotton candy, the smoke you make that way, because it's sugar making the smoke. But we learned a lesson really quick. We actually did it again, but we had kids posted at every corner on the stairs and up and down the stairs. And we notified the teachers first. And the teachers, fire drill, they opened their doors and it was just smoke. You couldn't see anything. And the teachers probably panicked as much as the kids did. But it was an effective fire drill. Except we had kids with scrapes and bruises and got ran over.
Probably the other interviewers that you've done will tell a little bit about the old school, because that's the one that we went into. But it was like, what, 3 floors?
3 floors with a
Yeah.
basement.
Yeah.
And the elementary kids were
So
in the
we had a
basement.
lot of fun things.
And the elementary school was built, and then I went to it after I went to the first 3 floors, or first 3 grades in the old school. And you'll see the pictures on the pictures of the old pictures. There was a huge stage in the middle of it, 2nd floor up. The only reason I had to take it down is because everything was central, so if anything started, it was just a big cone with the stairs went just in the middle. So they didn't have a way to fight fire then and wouldn't be able to stop it. And it was old. I thought it was old when I was in school. The people that went there, and 1918 class, you'll see that was there. My dad went there, and he graduated in Basco, Illinois. He went to 2 years, came out here, started working, and went back to school because he played sports. He loved sports. He was all-state basketball and track, so he played sports here at Entiat so he could play another couple of years of sports. So he had 2 diplomas.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thank you very
Old
much.
Thank you very
stories.
much.
And thank you, girls.